Hello and good morning. It's so good to be alive, and it's so good to be a part of something greater than myself, which is each and every one of you and everyone out there. We're all a part of each other, and even in that, we are part of something greater than that, right? Hello, my name is Milt Walker. I am the host of Intelligentlemen, and I've been receiving a lot of positive feedback lately about my podcast, and it's got me thinking a lot about life and the things that I do, and how I should move forward. I do IT work. I'm an IT consultant, and I love doing it. I love helping people with IT technology. I got some projects going on that I'm working on as well. So that's my secondary. But my primary is helping people. That's my primary. And part of me helping people is sharing my insights and perspectives through my podcast. And the feedback that I get from you all is so welcome, and it's so positive. I'm truly humbled by it to know that it helps people on their spiritual journey. As me just sharing my spiritual journey with people. And I mean, it's amazing, and no matter how much that's how it is. It is. It's amazing to be able to see that and hear that from people, and to be able to get that feeling. That, hey, this is really having an impact. And I tell people like this. I know that it has an impact. I know that for a fact, right? It's not something that I really have to question. Well, let me rephrase that. I don't have to question that at all. And I was having a conversation with somebody the other day, and we were talking, and the way that it came to me and I explained it then was, it's like dropping a ripple into the pond, dropping a pebble into the pond and causing ripples, right? The ripples continuously go out from that center, right? It's going to go out, and I'm going to tie this into a lot of different things here in a second, but just stay with me in this visualization. Visualize dropping a pebble into the stillness of a pond that hasn't been disturbed. Early morning. It's a nice, cool morning, not too cold, but cool. And you drop this pebble into the pond. And if you can see that, and you can start to see those ripples forming, that's what I want you to visualize every time you interact with anything or anyone. Visualize that, because vibrationally, that's what's happening. You are sending out a vibration, a ripple from your interaction, right? We talk about it as the law of cause and effect, right? But we also know that ties into the law of vibration, right? We know that everything is in a vibratory state, right? Nothing is at rest, no matter how much it may appear to be. We also know that at a high level, high vibration appears to be not moving. Just like at a very low vibration, it appears to not be moving. But what you're experiencing is your perception of time and space, right? that's what you're actually perceiving. You're not perceiving the vibration, because again, it's moving. But they've done tons of experiments on this, that are very low tech, just to kind of talk about it. When you have a car tire and they put it on this machine that allows the car tire to spin without going anywhere, right? It's just spinning and spinning and spinning. Once it gets up to a certain speed, it seems like it's not even moving. It appears that way, right? Even though it's moving. It's moving at a high speed. But it appears to not be moving. Now, that's just that fast, right? That's not even as fast. That's definitely not the speed of light, right? So what is really happening, right? So what is happening? So because light takes time to travel, right? It takes time to travel in space. And now we understand that space-time. It's one construct. And because it takes time, right, to move across that space, that creates the time, right? So as it's moving and then it gets to this space and then it bounces off and then it comes back to your eyes, right? Because that's what's observing it, the organ, your eyes, your sensory organ. And so that is your perception of time. But because the rate of spin on the tire is so fast that as the light is going and coming back to your eye, it appears that it's not moving. Which is, just think about that for a second. Think about that. That is amazing. That's one of the wonders of the universe. Like that is amazing, right? But when you have a very analytical mind, a very literal mind, that can just seem mundane, right? That can seem so mundane. You're like, okay, it's not that amazing, It's 1 + 1 = 2, right? So it's hard when you haven't really learned that the analytical side of the universe, right? The numbers, the bits, all that good stuff, that's just one half. And you can think about it just like you think about your brain. Half of your brain is for analytics and the other half is for creativity, right? So if we apply that same principle to the greater construct of the universe, there's an analytical side, we call it science, right? And then there's a creative side, we call that art, right? We call it art, but there's many different variations from each one of those branches, okay? And so what's really amazing about that is the fact that those, and I don't want to say opposites because they're not technically opposites. That's not the true principle of what it is, because they're actually part of the same thing. They're just on two different sides. So we're going to call it poles, right? Like North and South Pole, like magnetic, right? So we're going to say that those are two sides, and sometimes I just quite simply say two sides of the same coin, right? So you can't have one. Well, yeah, that's true. You can't have one without the other, right? Because in order for you to even get to a point where you want to analyze something that way, you have to be creative, right? Think back, and this is how I want to prove my point on this. Think back to all of the instances of scientific quote unquote discoveries, right? And that's why they call them discoveries, because you're not making anything. You're really just discovering something about the universe that we didn't previously know. Okay. So because of those scientific discoveries, right, that propelled us further in our knowledge in science. But in order for that to happen, some type of inspirational, creative thing had to happen that caused that breakthrough to happen. So what does that mean? That's the birth side, right? Creative. So that's and if we want to put it into other terms as well, that's the feminine energy, right? And then you have the masculine energy, right? So it may seem to indicate that the woman comes before the man, right? And that's nature. Nature's, that the whole question about which came first, the chicken or the egg, right? That is to explore that question, right? But in order for that egg to be there has to be a man, right? There has to be a masculine. Someone had to, or a male chicken had to fertilize that egg, right? That's how they happen, right? So it's not, when you think about certain things like masculine and feminine principle, you don't think about them in terms of which came first, okay? Because they came at the same time. And the reason why they had to come at the same time, right? Or I'm not going to say the reason why, but I'm going to say that because where they came from, which is the source of the creation, right? Those principles are embodied as one, okay? So there is no division. There is no illusion of division once you get past a certain point. So once you understand that, and you understand that the illusions that things are separate, it really just because we're on this physical plane observing them, right? But what gives away the eternal principle is this, that without one, you can't have the other. So in that by itself gets you to understand that both are needed and both are present at all times. Okay. Now, talking about that, I'll go into this other conversation about what I was having. And the way that I explain it is this. You have circles. I like to call it circles because my path to understanding was very geometrical. Let me just put it that way. Sacred geometry. And so the things that I've learned over my life so far, it's just been so amazing. And I've been so grateful to experience it and be able to, have it be a part of, my story and being able to share it with people. And so, the way I described it is like this, you have, these circles that we're talking about, right? The way I describe it, your circle is just in different ways, different places, they call it different things. But like when they say sphere, your sphere of control, right? Or your sphere of, whatever, right? So your bubble, right? However they say it, however you want to understand it, it's fine because it all means the same thing, okay? But what I say is it's a circle, okay? So the circle, my circle of being, who I am, that me, I am a circle, okay? What does that mean? What does that encapsulate as a thought, as a principle? That means I am complete. I am a circle. A circle has a beginning and it has an end. And the ending is the same as the beginning, okay? So I am a circle. I am complete, okay? Outside of that, there is a greater circle. That circle is the masculine and feminine, okay? And that is the completeness of the principle of twos, gender, right? The principle that everything has its, and sometimes people say opposites, sometimes people say, pairs, whatever the case may be. However you want to explain this, because of course, way back when our ancestors were learning this, it wasn't called that because English was not a language. So it wasn't spoken in English. Okay. So don't get so caught up in that part, because when people get caught up in the semantics of stuff, it keeps you at a very surface level of understanding. Okay. So try to move past that. Try to move into the principle, the understanding of the principle itself. Okay. Because that is where the deep root, infinite well of knowledge and wisdom comes from. Okay. So that second circle would be procreation, right? Man and woman getting together, procreating, right? And that harmonizing element that makes them a unit, right? Again, bringing together completeness, right? So on a very high level, a man and a woman are complete when they are together as well. So that's, you're complete within yourself. I'm complete when I'm with her, right? And when she's complete, right? And she's always complete, but when she embodies that, right? Then from there, the circle gets bigger. So now it's everyone, right? I won't even just stay in one community. I'm gonna leapfrog from the neighborhood, city, state, country level, and I'm gonna go to the world level. Okay, circle. Okay, everyone. Right now, you may ask yourself, what is that representing? What is that? It's pretty obvious about the male and female, right? It's pretty obvious, right? And even if you look at the other rings of this eternal circle, like your family and so on and so forth, it can still be. But when you get to that level, because this is where we actually need to get to in order to move to the next level after that, because there is a level after that. Okay, but we can't get to that level until we can master the level of Earth, right? A global family, everyone seeing each other as a family. When you can get to that level, when we can get to that level, oh my God, it's hard to even imagine what the next level is, because we know that the universe is mind-bogglingly big, arguably, almost infinite, right? But it's not infinite, okay? So I just want to put that out there for those who may be wondering, right? And science is still, and again, until we can get past the global circle, we can't really understand, why it's not infinite, because we can't understand, we haven't understood a certain level of ourselves, right? And we have, and you can see that certain, that on a, I'm not even going to say a minuscule, but I'll say on a micro level, we have understood this, right? We know that we're all part of the human. We know we all have we share the same DNA. Okay. We know this. And I'm not just talking about human beings. I'm talking about, we share DNA with plants, animals, we share elements of the elements. Okay. So We know that that everything is a part of us and we are a part of everything. We know this. But because of the things that we have chosen to hold on to, right? We haven't allowed ourselves to evolve into embodying that principle and what that truly means. It's happening, again, going back to my statement about the ripple, okay? And why it's so important. I want to tie all this together so that the vision is clear of what I'm trying to say. The ripples are what are causing the changes in the thoughts. So as it ripples out, one person may have that creative spark of, inspiration, and like this podcast, right? And you may be listening to it and you say, you know what? Yeah, that makes sense. I can see that. I can, I really understand this principle now. And so you may go and tell somebody else, and then they may go tell somebody else. Now, eventually, this ripple that was created, and again, we're just talking about this may not go all the way across the globe. It may. And I believe it will. I do believe it will. But just for the purpose of illustration, right? I want people to understand and to make sure that I'm clear that this is not an egotistical type of conversation that we're having. I want people to stay out of the ego, because it can keep you anchored to a very base type of existence, okay? So even if the ripple doesn't go further than a few continents, right? The ripple that it caused within the people that it touched. See, and again, I want you to visualize this. So imagine one pond, and that's the earth. A ripple gets dropped on the edge of the pond over here. Now, we know that ripple will eventually make it to the other side. We know that. But how that's represented is, it may not reach to the other side. Like, they may not listen to my podcast on the other side of the pond. But, which I do have some people who do listen to it. I can see it. But the thought, because people listen to it here, and they may travel over there and they may have those conversations, and it may have absolutely nothing to do with me. It may just be their understanding of what they heard through my podcast, okay? And so they may have that conversation with somebody else, and then boom, the ripple happens again. And from there, it continues. Now, it travels in this way, right? And so as the thought travels and it travels across, now what's happening? Now this vibration is being caused, and it's being raised, and it's being strengthened. And now that vibration has an opportunity to get struck by other ripples, right? And increase in magnitude and deflect and go into different directions that you didn't even really think about at the time, because you see what I'm saying? And again, I want you visualizing this, because when you drop multiple pebbles into that pond, it's not a symmetrical ripple anymore, right? Once those ripples start hitting each other, then they ripple again, and they ripple, and they ricochet, and they go that way, and they go this way, and then all of a sudden, the surface of the entire pond has waves, right? And you ask yourself, wow, how did that happen? How did that happen? How did we get here? How did we get to everyone having this thought, having this from back when it's, back from the source of where it came from, from the very beginning, but that's how it works. Because, and it's not something that people can control. See, so when we start talking about these things, you know what I mean? It's not something that people could control, meaning on both sides. Like, people can't stop that from happening, for one. For two, you can't force anybody to actually understand this, right? So everybody is on their own spiritual journey. You've heard me say that many times in many podcasts. So it's not about getting there by a certain time, okay? And I know a lot of people like to attach time to things. Like, for instance, there is a movement about the soil of the earth, right? And the nutrients being drained and not being, added back, and so on and so forth. Now, this is a great campaign, and I support it 100%. Sadhguru and his organization, they are the ones pushing that, and I am totally for what they are saying we need to do, which is we need to be more responsible with how we utilize our resources, and we need to, start cultivating the earth more in order for us to be able to, enjoy that. But I want to say this, because I know that the earth will outlast us in that way, right? So, not to say that, the human race is going to become extinct, but in a way that no matter what we do, we don't have the power on the level that we're on right now to completely destroy the earth. We don't have that power. We do not have that power. Now, we can mess it up, we could irradiate it, we could kill ourselves off of this planet, but we could never destroy the planet. We can't do that. That's not in our power right now. Okay? And the reason why it's not in our power right now, because we are not responsible enough to have that power. See, knowledge and wisdom and understanding of something comes to people when they have the ability to be responsible for it. And the reason for that is because you have to be responsible for what you do. Okay? So we're going to take a short break. And I'm going to come back and I'm going to finish this podcast. And I really appreciate you listening. And I hope that you're having a great day, a great week, a great month, a great year. And if it doesn't feel so great, hopefully it gets better. Okay? And I'll see y'all in just a second. Peace. Hello, and welcome back to the Intelligent Gentleman Podcast. I am your host, Milt Walker, and where we left off, we were talking about how responsibility for the knowledge and wisdom that we have is critical for our growth, right? Speaking directly about the fact that we don't have the power to destroy the earth completely, right? And I just want to go back into a little bit into what we're talking about, what we're saying, right? All things are connected. It's all connected, right? And so, being that it's all connected and connected at the root all the way to, well, from the source to the source. As a circle, right? Being that it is that naturally, right? There's a very important lesson to be learned, right? And that whatever we do on this planet affects everybody. It affects everything, right? When we're speaking about the law of attraction, the law of vibration, the law, manifestation. We're really talking about the same thing. They're all components of the same circle, greater circle. Okay. So they're all connected. One is it's one, you interact with one and it interacts with the other, going back into the representation of the Tao, right? Balance, right? Yin yang. As one recedes, the other moves forward, right? And it's in a very supporting way, meaning that there is no space in between. There's no space in between, okay? As one is moving back, the other one is moving forward in a continuous motion, a continuous flow, right? Which is what people experience in these types of situations when they speak about flow. You are experiencing the movement of these primal energies, okay? And as they move, if you're moving with them or allowing it to move you, right? It's moving through you, right? Then you experience flow state. You experience a state of flow where external forces have no ramification on your internal forces, right? Another way to put that is neutral, right? You neutralize it. So it doesn't even have an effect on you in that way, right? Which leads to something even greater than that, and I won't get to that in this podcast. I'll save that for one of my subscriber podcasts. But I'm going to start talking about this more often because I feel it's vitally important for us to understand this, right? Now, you can subscribe to my podcast. It's only 99 cents a month for the subscriber, but you can do the support. If you just want to donate to the podcast, you can do that also. And you could subscribe to supporting it monthly. And you can pay that little or more to that. And all of it, I really appreciate it. And so with that being said, I'm going to start adding a lot of stuff to the subscriber side so that I can keep that type of stuff organized a lot better. And I want to offer it to people as almost like, I don't want to say a course, but I want to offer it as additional listening that you can listen to that can help you, when you're listening to the rest of my podcast, because you'll find recurring themes, you'll find recurring terms that I speak about a lot, and they all are important. And for you to, be able to get a clear understanding as to what I'm saying, a lot of times you will have to kind of dig a little bit deeper into some of this stuff that I talk about. And so, supporting me, in my ability to be able to provide this to you is something I learned. I learned this back when I first started doing IT work, because I started off as the neighborhood IT guy. I've just helped people around the neighborhood whenever they needed help. I was there to help them. And if I could do it or if I could figure it out, I would just help them, and I would do it for free. Until, my community basically told me I needed to start charging for that. And they started paying me for it, basically. And so when that happened, then that's kind of when I got into, actually doing it as a service or whatnot. But it's the same with this. I've been recently told that, there's value in what I'm saying, which I know that, right? But knowing that it's helping other people is two different things, right? And I really want to create a community of people who, will start to practice this, because one of the things that I'm also going to start offering is some higher level information, for those who subscribe and those who become a part of the community. Stay tuned. I'm going to have a website coming up soon where I'm going to be putting all of this information out there as well. But, definitely I want people to join me on this journey. As I say, this journey on, in learning and discovering who you are, who I am, who you are, right? I want us to be able to, do this. I want us to be able to do this together. Okay. Because I enjoy sharing it. I enjoy talking about it and, talking about it amongst like-minded people and helping to create the momentum that's needed to propel us into that next level of consciousness collectively is something that I am pledging to do. That's something that I am doing that, right? And, I read a lot of books and, listen to a lot of stuff, but one of the things that I did also decree was that as I continue to grow in my wealth, one of my pledges is to donate at least 10% of my wealth, to charity, right? And when I say charity, I don't necessarily mean like charitable organizations, quote unquote, even though it could encompass them as well. I'm speaking about those who just need help. So that could manifest in a lot of different ways. I don't put myself in a box when it comes to that to say which way would be versus the other. So I wanted to make that clarification as well. But that is part of my declaration. And so that could be time, that could be resources, it could be energy, right? Me, putting in energy to help, programs and stuff like that, volunteering time and so on and so forth. But all of those things. And because I'm saying this because I want people to understand that, and I recently shared this out on Instagram. But, when it comes to wealth, most people think instantly about money or currency, right? But that is actually not in your top 5 for what wealth is, and I'm going to have a podcast about that. And I'm going to be talking about that here pretty soon. So I'm not going to go into that now, but I just wanted to share that and just say that, when we start talking about these things, understand that this is for a greater purpose. This is not just to have a podcast or just to, have followers. Okay. This is to create a community. This is to create that spirit of community where we can all come together, share these ideas that are uplifting and positive, that help bring about the change that we want to see in the world. Okay. And so, when we start to dive into, these vibrations and how they resonate, right? And how powerful they truly are. Because, there's vibrations that, we know of right now that, can change the state of matter, right? That changes its structure and so on and so forth. So just imagine what the higher levels of vibrations do, right? Just imagine, it takes, and I'll say this from a scientific standpoint, it takes a tremendous amount of energy in order to utilize that, right? But that's because you're utilizing it at this level of existence. At that next level, energy is abundant, right? Energy is abundant. Energy is no longer, quote unquote, a scarcity, which is not now, but it's all about your perception, all about your observation, right? But once that state is reached collectively, abundance is everywhere in everything, right? And we see that at that time. When we're in that mindset, we see it, and it's a part of our experience in life. And so we would have enough energy to do a lot of the things that now science is telling us we don't have the energy to do. See, I love reading, right? That's kind of like foreshadowing for me. That tells you where we're going, right? For me, that I see where we're going. I don't necessarily, I don't just see where we've been and where we are. I see where we're going, right? And it's going to be amazing. The things that are going to be done, and, poverty, sickness, all of these things are not even going to be a factor, right? We're going to be able to live our life abundantly and move on into the almost infinite, right? On that next level. Because it's exponential, right? The growth is exponential. It's not just up step 1, step 2, step 3. No. We're talking about step 1 to 100 to 1,000 to 1,000,000 to 1,000,000,000 to 1,000,000,000,000, right? So we're talking about exponential growth, right? And what that looks like mathematically, but also creatively, because again, we spoke about the two hemispheres of the brain, analytical and creative. So creatively, what does that look like? It looks like some of the things that you can't even imagine right now are going to become possible in that new realm of existence, in that new realm of thought, in that new realm of consciousness and energy. Okay. All of those things will be possible. Science has already documented cases of people healing themselves through positive thought, right? So if that's the case, if that can be done, it will be done on a mass scale at that level. Why? Because we will have a greater mastery of that. So we will be able to do it at higher frequencies and higher levels. Okay. So it's an amazing, it's a journey. It's an amazing journey. And that's why it's so important for us to enjoy this journey that we're on, because as we enjoy this journey that we're on and we're moving into our next state of being, right? Whew. It's a beautiful thing. As I sit here and watch the leaves fall from the trees, autumn is upon us, and the light from the sun is shining. It has a very clear, crisp, feeling in the air. It's cool. It's about a crisp 51 degrees outside right now, but the heat rays from the sun still warm you, and it's a nice mix. Oh my God, right? So when we think about nature, we think about the duality in nature as well. There's a mathematical precision to nature, right? There's an analytical precision to nature as well. But there's also the creative, beautiful, artful, artistic, right, side of nature as well. Okay. And so with that being said, I'm going to end this podcast, and I want to thank each and every one of you for joining me and becoming a part of my elevation and allowing me to be a part of yours, and who support me through monetary means, through listening, through sharing, through talking. Even if you talk about the things that we talk about, that is support. Okay. That is support. So do what you can, right? But realize that it's all connected. So if we all connect in the same way, we could get rid of a lot of the limitations that we have placed on ourselves to this day. Okay, people? All right. Now, remember, I love you. Remember that we're here on this journey together. And I wish for you what I wish for myself, which is peace, love, and elevation. And with that said, this has been the Intelligentleman Podcast, and I'll see you on the next one.